Hiya, it's me again, and I'll have to tell that story another time about the two crazy dreams that were not the normal dreams, and they weren't the other dreams that I've been having lately. All I know is there is so much deception, and it's gonna ramp up. Anyway, then my dream, after I prayed, and because I really think something was interfering. And again, to those of you who are experiencing this, probably heavily over the last 7 years, you can tell the difference between kind of the Acts 2:17 type dreams that is just prophesied in the Bible in Acts. Is they're very orderly in a way, even though they don't seem that way, but they are, right? They're kind of orderly. They have a certain feel to them, where your regular dreams aren't that way. You remember certain details. You ever notice that people say this was on the left and this was on the right? Like, did you ever do that in your other dreams? But you seem to notice that in these, like you notice what's on the right and left, and that would be interesting to know, like in dreams, if that has significance. I know Jacob's trouble. He lays on one side for so many days and lays on another side for so many days. Maybe that's why. It would be interesting to kind of investigate that in the Bible to see that if in dreams these things have significance in the way of what's on the left and what's on the right. So that's kind of interesting. That'd be kind of interesting thing to dig into. So in this dream, and I had to put this out because I think it's kind of a warning to stay away from certain things. It was outside. I'm not sure if it was an angel. It was somebody in white robes, or God himself, or God, or a representation of that. And again, these dreams are meant to teach you, to show you what's going to happen as warnings. This was very, very common back in the Old Testament. We're just not used to it. Okay, this is happening to all flesh. There's probably people having dreams don't even realize they're having them. I think sometimes it takes a minute or two, it takes a while to realize. If you don't know the Bible that well, or you don't even know that's what's supposed to occur, you may just kind of be blowing them off. I think I did in the beginning until I realized that these dreams weren't. Something was weird with them. Again, I'm not special in any way. And of course, all glory goes to God, because this is really magnificent when you think about it, right? It's just, what a brilliant, wonderful strategy. And when I've been listening to Judges and the whole sundial story, there's definitely a pattern of beautiful strategy with God, and a lot of learning in those stories. You can't, you're not gonna go wrong looking at the Word, right? Always seek God's face. There's some people doing some videos. I'll talk about that in another video. Again, there's two groups that are kind of being targeted. There's the awakened group, which I think is being targeted by Q. This whole Q thing, again, when you first start awakening, and you kind of know the whole Epstein list thing. To me, it's like, okay. Here's the thing: we as Christians, we do not bear false witness. So, to me, nobody's guilty of anything right now until it goes to court. Period. So until all of them go on trial for that whole thing, it's all hearsay, and we don't participate in that. So basically, if anybody asks, what do you think about this? Go, hey, just bring them all in, and then we'll see who's guilty and we'll see who's innocent, right? Otherwise, you really don't know, because we don't bear false witness. I almost feel like we're all being tested. I'll talk about that in another video. Not the list, but more of the two groups that are really, really being pushed to deception. So in this dream, we were walking outside. I didn't say anything, and there was like this in the distance. There was like this outdoor concert, okay, at night. And as we got close, got to it, the concert was gone, and all that was left was graveyards. So I think that was a pretty clear warning. Stay away from concerts and really any big time events, okay? If you understand that they've got a countdown going on. So, in other words, stay out of the world for a bit. Just to give you an example, I had to look up, I was like, is there any upcoming music? And the reason I said country, and the reason I looked up country music is because of the other part of the dream, which may be something entirely different. Oh, what was that? Was it Astro World? You guys remember that? And yeah, stay away from this. Okay? Good idea, huh? The reason is that people aren't thinking, right? And I know that people died during this thing. I'm sure that something intervened to stop a lot of it, but that's probably going to change in the future. If you understand what I'm saying, they're not going to hide what they're doing anymore. God is pulling that out. He's pulling back the veil. Just stay away from these kind of events. You don't walk into an open mouth of something that looks really demonic. Okay? It's just kind of right now, especially if you're a Christian. And do not, especially with your children. If you have, I mean, if they're adults, you can't, all you can do is warn them. Don't go to these places. But if they're children, it's, when you start looking at, when I was reading, or listening to Hezekiah's story, as well as, Kings 2, back then, it was normal to the pagans back then for them to literally just offer their children up to altars. Okay? And if you think that went away, it hasn't. It's just a different form of it, okay? So just understand that if you take your kid to one of these events and there's a lot of satanic worshiping going on, and something happens, you basically have offered up your child. So pay attention. So I think that was kind of a warning to that. Stay away from these kind of venues. Sporting events, these big sporting events. I can only imagine what the Super Bowl is going to be like in the way of the halftime show. I just wouldn't, just don't. That's up to you. My job is to just talk about the dream, and that's a pretty clear picture of what he was trying to show me. The other part was a little stranger, but did lead to something quite interesting. And it was, we were in a bar, like an old Western bar, like a Wild Wild West kind of thing. And there was a chair, and on the back of it, it said Lucifer. The angel, or I think it was God, it was crying. Now, if you understand the story with that, Lucifer was God's favorite angel until he betrayed him. Okay, so it's probably referring to that. I was trying to figure out what this meant, I'm like, why the old Western bar, right? What? It could have been anything, but why that? And it could have been referring to country music type venues. I'm like, well, it's really wintertime. It's going to be outside. So I can't narrow that down. All I can think of is, okay, Old Time West, is there a bar called Lucifer? So I know the show, which I've maybe a long time ago before I was spiritually awakened, maybe watched one episode of this and went, no. Even back then, even before that, I went, no. I don't think we should be glorifying Lucifer in any way. That's what they do, right? They just constantly do this kind of stuff. Sunset Boulevard is where this nightclub, Lux, which is probably a shorter version of that, Morning Star. You're really going to call it that? Okay. So Lux nightclub. That's in California. I think it's on Sunset Boulevard. So LA reference again, right? The other thing, and I can't remember how I got to it, as I was scrolling down, I came across something else that made me go, oh dear. And whether this was intentional or not, I couldn't tell you. So I was looking at that. So that's, again, I don't know. Yellow fever. So yellow fever, the reason that came up, I can't remember where I saw the word yellow, and I'll show you this in a minute, is a gold rush kind of thing, if you guys remember that, and especially if those of you who are old enough. And the reason I remember that was the Wolf reference when I was listening to Judges. What was it? Wolf Winery Pit. There was a place called that. There's also a place called Crying. So I was like, wait a minute, he was crying. It's just, I was trying to look for something that maybe, I kind of looked it up in Israel. It might not be in Israel. I think the Middle East. I just have no idea about, I thought that was interesting. The yellow eyes of the wolf and the one dream about the wolves in sheep's clothing. He also had 3 kind of wrinkles on the forehead. So it could be dealing with yellow fever. Now, fevers could be like an actual fever, a sickness. We know pestilence is coming. We have no idea, again, how that's coming. God doesn't say. And I'll show you what I mean here in a minute. But also the gold reference, right? So something's going on there that I can't quite... We'll have to let things play out to see what happens. So I was like, well, is there yellow fever in the Bible? I was just curious. And there's 12 verses about fever. It might be good to look at. But that wasn't it. I can't remember what I was looking at this. I was scrolling down, and I went, are you kidding? And again, it's just, there's so much out there. And it wasn't yellow fever. That's going to pull up something else. Ready for this? Okay, hold on. Oh, I looked up like Lucifer yellow. I was just curious. So, what is that about, right? Well, why don't you look at the page? National Institutions of Health.gov. But don't worry, they're telling you, oh, no, we don't mean that. Anybody trust your government now? You awake yet? This was 1978. They haven't stopped. You see what I'm saying? So, again, we know there's going to be pestilence. God didn't specify how. Might want to stay away from anything the government tells you to take, okay? Yeah, you can go through that, but that's how I came across it, and I went, they really called it that? Now, granted, that was a 78, and people back then, the internet wasn't like it is today. So, you probably wouldn't come across this till later anyway. Really? Really? You awake yet? You know all those people that you called crazy that were warning you about stuff? Because they do the research. That'd be an interesting little tidbit. Why would anybody call it that? Right? Okay. It's a fluorescent dye. That's kind of important. So, I'll let you guys go through that. The last part of the dream, God protect me, right? Because that's a biggie. But that's why it was so frustrating during the pandemic. When you're awake, you're just like, okay, I don't know how much more you need to see. And that's the point, is God is pulling back the veil. He's trying, to open people's eyes as quickly as possible. Because it's important about that deception thing, right? Man, there's a lot of freaking helicopters or whatever flying around lately. Anyway, we live closer to Air Force Base. Just been the last I don't know, 6 months or so. Just been busy. The third part of the dream was actually quite beautiful. I was sitting at a table, beautiful room, and kind of a lot of white and crystal everywhere. And I still haven't figured this one out yet, but it was somebody. I think it was a woman, again dressed in white, who, with her right hand, reached in and pulled out a scroll. That's it. So I don't think it's part of Revelation. So I don't know what that means. And I was just sitting there calmly. I felt at peace. I was like, just kind of looking around. So that's it. It's just interesting that the eclipse it exits on Mars Hill, which is kind of both the war reference as well as candy bar reference with the one dream with the chocolate bar, the gold and then the chocolate inside. So I guess we're going to find out what all this stuff means, right? I don't know. All I can say is, as a warning, to stay away from these concerts, any kind of big-time sporting events. Now's not the time. Get as much out of the world as you can. Even God said, I think I can't remember where I heard that or saw that, go hide yourself for a little while, right? Oh, and I had this dream on 1/4/24 around 11 o'clock. And that's it. And then I'll let you guys do some research if you want to on some of that. And again, any help would be appreciated, because I just trying to interpret some of these dreams, especially the first one was pretty self-explanatory. The second one, I have no idea. Why on a chair? Is there something with chairs? I don't. A cherub? Was Lucifer a cherub? That might be it. Huh, that makes sense. I don't know. I know that was a huge betrayal, which is probably why he was crying. But he was, again, why this old Western, like Wild Wild West type reference? That's referring to kind of the gold rush or yellow fever or some place that's associated with that, or a bar called that. So go from there. And again, all glory goes to God. It feels good to have the dreams back as normal. I mean, you know what I mean, in the way of what they were before. Where they were, again, they're always very orderly. Doesn't really matter what's going on in them. There's some kind of order to them. Like I said, you always notice what's on your left and your right. You don't remember that with other dreams, do you? It's weird how you remember it with these, and it's interesting. So I will do some research on that left-right thing in dreams in the way of the Bible, because you always have to go there first and always go to Scripture first. I was just showing you an example of that one concert. That's just the tip of the iceberg of probably what's going to happen here. So they're not hiding it anymore, and that's because God is forcing it, basically pulling it out of them to not hide it. So everything goes to Him. Everything goes to God in the way of it's His works. It's what He's doing, and that's what's so important. It's nothing I can do. He's doing it all in the way of these dreams and everything else. It's really quite marvelous. And I was trying to think of any part in the Bible that I could look at with that. In the way of like a story, like they have like Isaiah and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't know where. I have no idea. All right, I'll let you guys go. And have a good one. And love for Jesus, right? Because He's coming home.